Hi, everybody. It is Tuesday at 7 p.m. Sorry, technical difficulty here. Got so much going on, and the thing is plopping up all over my computer screen. So, welcome. It is Tuesday and 7 p.m. and another evening with Spirit Focus with me, Robert Painley, someplace up here. And wanted to get in touch with some people, with some clients today. And asked them if I could use some of their stories. So I have 10 stories to try and maybe get through. And I did get permission to use some additional details today so I can kind of make these stories a little bit maybe more interesting. But today's topic is things that surprise me, because what's funny sometimes when I'm doing readings is people don't understand that when I get information, and I've been doing this for more than 50 years, getting information. And sometimes it's just shocking. It's surprising what I get. It's surprising to even me when I get it. And when I get verification and validations from my clients, it's sometimes surprising. I don't know that's what's going to come through. And I don't get to pick or choose what messages they're giving me. It's just kind of shocking sometimes, some of the stuff that comes through. Some of it is exceptionally personal. And, from rape and illegitimate children and all kinds of life issues. And one of the things that I've actually had to, I don't think struggle with as much as try to figure out how to tactfully talk to clients about these sorts of issues, is to remain completely non-judgmental. My job there is not to judge. Somebody's already got that job. And so there's no judgment for me. But it doesn't mean that I can't be surprised. I am human, and when I get some of this information, sometimes it's very, very strange. So I wanted to share some of those today. So I have I got lots of paperwork here to talk about. Can't even see it; it won't come up. But I have lots of stories to talk about today about things that surprise me. And I have to little preface here is that sometimes I don't remember everything that I talk about. When I go to see a client, I'm there sometimes for 2 to 4 hours, sometimes longer. I've been, longest I've been with a client is maybe 8+ hours one time for a haunting that couldn't be resolved easily. And so when I'm there for that long and I'm giving information and I'm channeling for that long, I don't remember everything. If I remembered every nuance of every customer I ever worked with, I would probably go a little crazy because there's just so much information and none of it is really germane to me. Again, I'm just a funnel, a channel, a temporary way for information to get from point A to point B. And in that process, I don't think about it because I'm good at interpreting maybe how that might fit somebody's life. But it's the actual client themselves that have to figure out what information for them is germane and what to do with the information that I'm giving them. Again, most of the time, I don't know my clients at all. Most of my clients are new. I don't have a ton of recurring clients. I like to see a client and hopefully give them all the information that they're supposed to have at one time. And potentially never see them again. There's so many people out there that need to have readings and need to have interaction in some capacity, so that having somebody repeat, I don't feel like I'm doing my job if I'm not able to give them everything that they're supposed to have. So while I do see some clients on a return basis, most of my clients are first timers, and then sometimes I won't hear from them again for 2 years, and all of a sudden they'll resurface. And I certainly don't remember the first time that I had ever met them. Most of the time, sometimes I'll remember faces or names or something, but I won't remember the detail of the conversation I had. And most of the time, it's not necessary because the messages themselves should be different. Some things in the 2 years, I don't usually see anybody within 6 months of that unless I'm training them, unless I'm doing classes with somebody. So that type of information will change because your life changes over 6 months. The life events can happen, marriage or death or job change or location change. All those things can happen in an intervening 6-month period of time, which means that the next time that we meet, it's not going to be a rehash of old information. It's actually going to be kind of one of those, it's hopefully, if it's a good reading, a reading that's going to provide additional information for people to utilize, hopefully in a very positive way in their life to get them to move forward if they're stuck or something's going on in their life. Again, most people come to me because they're having an issue. There's a problem or an issue that needs to be resolved, or they're trying to get some clarification or insight into something. And hopefully I can help. And if I can't, I have someone that I'm working with now who's called me a couple times and looking for health information. I'm not a doctor, so I don't like to give out health information. I can point directions where I feel something is happening, or where testing may be required, or give indications. But since I won't read death, a lot of people, when they're going into surgery, want to know how the surgery is going to turn out and that sort of thing. You're putting, anytime you're asking that type of information of a medium, you're putting the medium in a between a rock and a hard place a lot of times. So there's a lot of mediums who will read that information and let you know that everything's going to turn out fine and everything else. And I will do that and have done that. But a lot of times I don't like to get myself involved with heavy medical issues because I don't want people to make a decision, a life-altering decision, or some type of medical procedure based on the information that I'm getting. I prefer that they take the medical advice that they're being given by their doctor to be able to make those decisions from a rational perspective, not so much a spiritual perspective. A spiritual, if they come to me and they're having that surgery, I'm more than happy to talk to them from a spiritual side, what I see, what I feel, what I sense, maybe messages that are coming from the other side for love, hope, healing, that sort of thing. But an actual outcome or an actual diagnosis, those I like to leave usually to the doctor, unless there's a reason I feel that I'm being given information that I need to move to present to a client. So with all that those little caveats in mind, I kind of want to talk about some of the things that surprise me on occasion. And I've got a lot of stories, like I said. So I've got a vodka cranberry here to start out my evening. And let's get started. So the first one I want to talk about today is one that just happened. Yesterday, I had a client, and you were talking about two upper middle-aged individuals who are retired, and they have a home down in Miami, and they brought me to the house because she had been bothered. But I think I mentioned this on last show, been bothered by the spirit of someone for 38 years, her father who passed. She saw him right after he passed, and has continued year after year after year to make his presence known. So yesterday was my appointment with this client, and it was an amazing reading. It was phenomenal in the sense that there was a lot of good information and clarification as to why the dad was around. And so I'm gonna be a little blunt here as far as he is was very controlling. Was controlling in life at the party, but had a particular way of living and a style of living, gregarious and open and fun. But really, he was also in a profession that is of service to people. So he had a great kind of a spiritual bent to him, and was very, very strong in that sense, and made his presence known. And he wanted his daughter to be happy. And so the messages that were coming through were about her marriage, were about her children, were about what she's doing in her life and what she should be doing in her life to move forward. And one of the surprising things, so as this reading progressed, and this reading was probably lasted about 2.5 hours, but the reading itself really got down to brass tacks as to why he was there. And he was telling me that he was interacting with her mother, and she told me confirmed that she in fact was talking to him, but was trying to kind of refuse receipt of the messages. I don't know how to put that much better than that. She was being contacted, and she felt that contact in her dream state, and felt his presence, and would just ignore it, like I did many moons ago. And so through ignoring the messages, she kind of would get messages a little bit through her daughter, who was seeing her dad for, 38 plus years. So he died tragically, died suddenly, and he just wanted to be around. He wanted to be involved in her life and wanted her to have a happy life, but it was how he was doing it to her that was disconcerting for her. He would be in the bedroom, he'd be in the bathroom, he'd be at work with her, he'd be in the car, he'd be all over the place trying to make his presence known, and was not subtle in any way about it. So yesterday was about teaching her how to deal with that type of spirit, because again, this is a spirit guide. I don't want to remove someone who is proactive and positive presence in her life. That's not my purpose. My function is to make sure that if there's something negative there, that I remove that negativity. Even though this was negative in a sense, it was trying to figure out why he was doing this, and this protective nature that he has is what was causing the problem. So quite frankly, for me, it was a matter of telling him just to step back, to take this different tact. And I actually asked my mom to come through, because my mom has a tendency to be a little omnipresent as well in the majority of my family's lives. And so I asked her, and I've communicated with my mom numerous times about how to maybe do that better. And so I asked her to please come forward and have this discussion with the soul to make sure that he understood what he was doing, because it's not good for, the souls on the other side are here to try to help us, to try to make our lives better, to give us the best life possible, to give us information that's going to be helpful to our lives, to our spiritual existence, and so that we live our spiritual journey that we're supposed to have on this plane. So she explaining that to him was what was most important. And even yesterday evening, I got a phone call from her last evening saying it was already better. She felt better. She felt that the energy in the house had shifted. And this will continue for her. She may have a little PTSD from, 38 years of having negative interaction in this way, but it was also training her to, instead of looking at it as a negative experience, there are so many people that I work with as clients that want to have interaction with their loved ones. And she's got a cornucopia of experiences, and she would rather have less of them. But explaining that to her, that there are so many people out there who want to connect and would love to be able to connect with their loved ones the way that she's able to connect. So it's a matter of trying to find some balance in her life for both of them. She's a strong-willed individual. Her dad in spirit is a strong-willed spirit and energy, and trying to come up with a balance so that both of them, she can go on to live her complete spiritual existence and not be overly burdened by the communication from her father. So I think we found a balance. Again, I don't want to remove him from her life, because he's going to be there for trials, tribulations, and her crossing years from now. So with that in mind, I want him to remain. I want him to be an influence there, but it's just a matter of how. And trying to explain that and find that balance between spirits, I think, is important. So if you're having that same type of situation where you have an overbearing spirit, if it's somebody that's known to you, do what you would do if they were here, because basically it's the same soul. They just don't have the transport vehicle that you and I have on this plane. It doesn't make them any different. If they are truly crossed, they will come through with a different perspective, and it's for your higher good, higher being. If they have not crossed and they're stuck in between and they haven't made that true crossing, they may retain some of their earthly personality, earthly I don't know what you want to call it. The personality, it's something, just not some of the higher qualities that we would expect of someone who has crossed and learned the lessons. They may come through in a selfish manner or in an aggressive manner, or come through telling you negative things. That means that soul has not crossed at all, because that would never happen from a place of light. So understand that. And once that happens, so once you know what you're dealing with, then it's a matter of dealing with it different ways. If you have a spirit that hasn't crossed, try to see if you can get them to cross with the help of medium help, or learn how to try and figure out how, if you can do that maybe by yourself. Not going to be sometimes very successful if you're not getting that feedback or that interaction of what's going on, but find a medium that can help you. If they are crossed and they're being challenging because they're being a bit overbearing, explain to them what's going on, and always please pray for them, pray for their highest good, pray for their journey, but let them understand what they're doing. Um, I'm going to give a story about that too. I've told this story before, I believe, but at my sister's house, I was sleeping one night, and she had a chocolate lab, and the dog probably passed maybe 8 years before, to a decade before this incident occurred. But I was laying in bed, and I felt a nudge on my leg in the middle of the night, and I looked over and saw this dog, Calvin, who had been who had crossed 10 years previous. And I said, hello, Calvin. And Calvin kind of gave me one of these little jumping little nod things and kind of started to walk out the room. So I got up. I felt like I was supposed to follow him. So I followed this dog across the hallway, down the hall a little bit into my nephew's room. And he was having disturbed sleep. You could see he was tossing and turning and stuff, but there was a woman standing over him. And I didn't know who this was. I'd never seen this spirit before. And so I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I just observed. I just didn't interact. It wasn't causing any harm to my nephew, but except in this disturbed state that he was in. I got up the next morning and I asked my sister about it, and she said, "Oh no, that's my sister." Had never met my mother-in-law. She passed before her husband and she got married. But she said, "Oh no, my husband sees her and in the house occasionally." So I said, "Okay, well, this is who this is," and she was hovering over your child. So I'm going to chat with her. If I see her again and I run into her, I'm going to see what's going on and why she's doing this. Next night, I went to sleep, got up in the middle of the night, walked across the hall, saw this woman again over my nephew's bed. And as I approached, she kind of stood up straight, looked at me, and I just mentioned to her that she was trying to comfort the child because of these disturbed states. She was trying to comfort. But the problem really is that my nephew sensed this energy and sensed this being, even though he was asleep. And this energy, this loving, kind, wonderful energy that was around was disturbing his sleep because it was just too much. So I just asked her, I thanked her for being there. I thanked her and told her, please, be in your grandchildren's lives and your son's life and be there to witness all this and to help and to guide. But she needs to stand back because she's actually kind of causing this problem with her energy. And once she did, I got a call from my sister and saying that the dreams had stopped, this restlessness had stopped. But sometimes the spirit does not understand that they're sometimes the cause of the problem. And in this case, she was kind of creating this huge amount of energy. Even though it was very good energy, it's still, a lot to deal with, particularly for a child who doesn't understand that energy, understand what's happening, and may even see in dream state or something else what this is, and see somebody hovering over the top of them. That can be disconcerting for a child, particularly since this child did not know this person in life. It would be quite a surprise to see somebody hovering over you in this fashion. So it was a matter of trying to make sure that was resolved. So again, that was an encounter that worked well in helping my client yesterday to have him understand how his spirit was being and his energy was being overbearing to the living, and how he needed to, I hate to say the living, the spirits on this plane, so we say, because they're living as well as spirit, but so I hate that, I'm trying to not to do that. But to try and make sure that he kind of pulled his energy back a little bit, to be present in her life, to be around, to be engaged in what's going on, and to influence her in ways that he can through her dream state, and in ways that he's able to. Sometimes she's a little clairsentient in that sometimes she just knows things. She knows what they're saying. and can hear him. And she just happens to, she just, I'm going to walk into a store and the person who's going to be there is, dressed in pink. She just knows things, and she knows things that her dad is trying to tell her. So just ask them to please come that way. So we'll see as time progresses. I'll kind of give an update how that's working. So far, 24 hours in, her life is better, and he hasn't been there. But again, it's a short period of time, so we'll see how that works out. But I fully anticipate that once spirits on the other side know that they may be creating a little bit of a problem, that they are intent on resolving in a positive way, as to not influence those on this plane in some type of negative fashion. So I truly believe that this situation was resolved. Time will tell. I will continue to follow up with her, and I will follow up and let you know how that turns out as time progresses. So that's story number one of something that surprised. Oh, I didn't tell you the surprising part. Again, went through all that process. So the surprising part yesterday was actually that I asked her. I asked if she had a nickname, and she said, "Not really," and they are Hispanic. And I asked her. I said, "Who's Gato?" It's very strange. I said, "This, I've never had that name come up. Gato is Spanish for cat, male cat." And I said, "Gato, who is Gato?" And she said that was his best friend when he passed 38 years ago. His best friend's name was Gato as a nickname, and he has a message for Gato. So she's going to try and find out if she can get in touch. She's never really met Gato, but she knows people who know him. And so I'm going to contact him because there's apparently a message there. But the surprising part for me is when I get a strange name like that. It's very unusual. I mean, it's very, very specific. Again, in all the years I've been doing readings, I've never had the word Gato come up in relation to a client's, to a name for someone. And as a nickname specifically. And it's always surprising to me when spirit is that specific and that strong that they could get that type of a message through. So that was my everything else that I talked about was kind of normal for me, but the Gato surprised me because it was so unusual and so unique and so specific to someone that was known in the family. I won't get into what that message is. I already have the message. So hopefully we could get reach Gato to be able to provide what that is, because it does have some interesting ramifications for his family. So we'll get into that. If Gato gives me permission to tell his story, then I will do that on a future episode as well. But we'll get into another one at the moment. Sorry, I'm reading my notes here and trying to figure out. Like I said, I have so many stories to tell and that I remember, and some that were surprising. And we're running short on time again. I talk a lot. I'm sorry. I went to a company. I don't know how much information to give, but I've done a whole show on this company. So Mimi's Cupcakes down in Miami. She has multiple locations, phenomenal cupcakes. If you're in the area, please go to Mimi's Cupcakes. She's phenomenal. Her goodies are fantastic. I've sampled many different cupcakes and sweets and pastries that she has, and they're all delicious. However, I was there one time and she had an employee, probably may still be there. This goes back probably maybe 2 years at this point now. But this was surprising. There were numerous things that were surprising. I'd been to a couple of different locations. One that had to do with a gentleman that was haunting a particular location. The story I want to talk about today is one where that was very surprising to me, because I had a young woman in front of me, one of the employees, and she, as a manager, was going through some personal issues, health issues with her mom, and I didn't know that, so I was doing a reading for the owner, but she walked into the room and it was like, wait. Got something for you. You can't leave. Sit down. Let's have a conversation. And we proceeded at that point to say, you have that there was health issues around her mom. And at the time, my mom had passed of ovarian cancer. And so I know that energy. I know what that feels like. It's very clear to me when women have this particular disease. how it can affect them, and the sense that I get with it. Much like I can tell the difference between a stroke and an aneurysm and a heart attack and things when spirit gives me that information. With ovarian cancer, it's very strong because of that connection with my mom and her disease. So when I was sitting there and talking to her and talking about her mom, I knew what was going on. And I told her uh, what was happening with her mom and the prognosis for her mom. And this, I think I may have told the story one more time from a different perspective, is that I don't read death. And I read specifics about the health situation of her mom, which she did not know yet. And I was incredibly apologetic for giving her as much detail as I gave her about her mom's condition, and what spirit was giving me to tell her. And I felt bad. I called her when I left. I called her again that evening, and she had already talked to her mom. And she actually thanked me, even though I was apologetic because I don't give that type of information typically. She said that it made her well prepared for the diagnosis that she had. So while it turned out good, I felt horrible at the time, and it's ingrained in my mind to this day not to do what I did on that day and make sure that people know what's happening with their loved ones, or that again, it was a training exercise for me as a medium to make sure that I ask my clients first whether or not a diagnosis has been made and if they know what's going on before I just blurt things out, because I may know things that they don't at that particular time, and it's not a comfortable feeling for me to go down that road, and quite frankly for the client, particularly if they're not ready for it or not adjusted for it. But that was surprising how spirit can come through. So it was very surprising to me, one, how strong that ovarian cancer connection was, and the different nuances of it, where the cancer may be, how it's located, where it's located, what happens. But again, that comes from sensing it with my mom going through what she did. But also just the specifics of what they were giving with regard to her prognosis and what she was going to face and what she was going to do and how long this was going to last, and everything. I find it amazing that spirit can tell you that type of information to help people, prepare people, and get people ready for what's to come. I don't like to be wrong, because this is not an area that I'm comfortable in, because there's no upside to being wrong, which is why I don't read death. So there are so many nuances that can happen, and most of it's out of my hands. It's one thing. Again, I'm different than a friend talking to them. I'm giving them moral support and guidance, and being there for them. I don't fill that role, because I'm just a person who's coming in there for a very short period of time to tell them what I'm sensing or feeling from spirit, what the messages are, and exiting. So that process I take very seriously, and want to make sure that my clients understand that if I don't go down a particular road, that there is a reason for it. But I do find it amazing and surprising, particularly in this instance, how clear it was. And I won't go into all the specific details. Again, this is one of those people that I haven't spoken to in years, and I don't want to say too much about to give identity away with personal information. But I think if you go and have a reading, these are the types of things that can come up in a reading. And I think it's important that you understand a couple of things. One, that the information can be serious in nature, and to be prepared for it, and to be careful what you ask for. A lot of people ask me questions like death, and well, oh, I can handle it, tell me what it is. No, you can't. Most people, there is a strong will to live in people, and a strong sense to preserve life, particularly your own, and you'll do anything to do that when you are threatened. And having someone tell you what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and you thinking that you're able to handle that psychologically, just understand that more than likely, if that would be extremely challenging to do, and which is why I don't do it. Because again, there's no upside. If I tell them the information and I'm right, they're worried, they don't have the journey that they're supposed to have for the rest of the time that they're supposed to be on this plane. or if, God forbid, I'm wrong and I misinterpret the information, or the information that I'm being given, then they've worried needlessly for nothing. And so none of those are good outcomes. And which is why I refuse to go down that road. So again, this is supposed to be about surprising things, but that was surprising in specificity. And since that happened a couple of years ago, I've become much more adept at getting uh, medical information. And I think it's because Spirit trusts me with the information, that I'm not going to give the information, that I take it seriously, that I take what I do seriously, and that I'm accurate in what I'm giving, and I don't give away too much, or that I make sure that I'm accurate in what I'm giving, so that that I think I'm trusted with that information more so, and I think they've opened that area up to me more because of my seriousness in that regard. Um, and actually, time for a sip. Another story. So I'll move off of that and hopefully give you more surprising things. One of the ones that was probably one of the more fun aspects of one that was surprising. Like I said, I don't get to read for my husband Mark most of the time. And one time we met he hadn't seen his cousins for 35 years, 30 years, 35 years. And so we went to New Jersey to go visit them. And we got up there and they were super kind, just lovely people, and invited us to stay at their home. And while we were there, Mark made the mistake of telling them what I do, that I'm a medium. And they were curious naturally, wanted to hear stories, wanted to know more, and wanted to know if I got anything for them. And we were tired. We've been traveling all day and stuff. And so I said, look, I'm not getting anything at the moment. I'm going to get ready for bed. You guys chat for a while. We stayed up, maybe till 11 o'clock. It was casual chit chat. Went to sleep, and there were a couple messages that came through. One for one cousin that had to do with an ex-boyfriend who passed, and another one. And so these messages came through, and again, I don't know context sometimes. They just give me images and show me what's there. And so I had this strange dream about a purple coat with a lapel pin on it that had this little silver flower. It was like a bud that was opening, and it was a lapel pin, and I could see it in the lapel. And as I'm watching this in my dream state, I'm watching this lapel pin as it was morph into start to just morph. It's being melted down. It's moving into another form. It's moving into, I can't tell what it is because it's just starting to melt and get kind of wrapped around. And I wasn't sure what this was, but it was definitely a lapel pin. And so a strange dream, when I have strange dreams, they usually mean something, but sometimes not to me. And in this case, it meant nothing to me. But I got up in the morning, and my husband was already upstairs drinking coffee. I took a shower, got dressed, went upstairs, and it wasn't even, they may hate them, but it wasn't really good morning, Robert. It was like, did you get something? And so I started telling him. I told him about the interaction with the gentleman that I had that had passed, and what he wanted to say, and some very profound messages for his one cousin. And for the other cousin, I said, I had this strange dream. I have no idea what this is, but I told him about the lapel pin and where it was and what it was. And she said, and both cousins looked at one another, and one of them quietly got up and walked into one of the bedrooms upstairs. We were downstairs sleeping, and walked into one of the bedrooms and came back about a minute later and held up a ring. And her dad had a lapel pin of a silver flower opening up, and she had repurposed that piece into a ring that she just had made maybe 2 weeks before. And they all looked at me kind of in amazement, as did my husband, because he really hadn't seen me kind of do some things like that in the past. So it was shocking. It was surprising. It was very specific. And it was, I think that it was surprising to me because, again, very specific to what it was, what was happening with it, that it was being repurposed, and that it meant something to his cousins who never met me before. I'd certainly never met them, didn't know anything about them until we made the trip. And to have that, and Spirit be able to provide that type of sign, I just think was amazing. And it helped to them to understand a little bit more about their own family, about their dad, and about how he sees what's going on in their life, and completely okay with the fact that they repurposed this piece of jewelry and made it her own to do what she wanted with it. So it was just a lovely bunch of messages. But again, that specificity that came through shocked me. I wasn't expecting it. Wasn't having that type of a dream and then seeing the reality, I think, on the other side sometimes is surprising for me, as just a person who happens to get those types of messages and not sure why sometimes they're showing me things, but then it means something incredibly profound for somebody else. For me, I don't think many people dream about lapel pins, but when I had those type of dreams, there's a reason for it. So I try to remember my dreams, and it usually always happens the night before I go see a client to say this is what this may have some significance. And quite frankly, even I had a reading 3 days ago, and I had a gentleman follow me around my house for 3 days. And he was a big guy, salt and pepper hair, walking around, following me every time I turned a corner. This guy would be standing there, never said anything, just stood there. But that means usually before I go see a client that I'm going to connect with this energy in some capacity. And sure enough, when I went to go to the house, this guy was related to this family and had a message for them. But it's kind of just incredible how they make their presence known and how they are around and want to connect and want to give messages. A lot of times what's kind of fun is the spirit may be trying to do that for years and never getting the message across or getting messages across to them. But it just takes a medium, a few moments of working with that spirit to get the message and deliver the message, and the spirit's more at peace because the message has been delivered, and then can go on and with other things that they have to do. But they usually kind of take advantage. I know from I talked to friends like Roshi Shapiro and Terry Angel and other people. They all have that same experience where there's just this peace that comes over the situation, because when messages are finally delivered, there's a calmness about on all parts. And for myself, because I could feel the energy shift once a message has been delivered. And I think that's just a wonderful feeling. So the people who need the message got the message, the spirit that was trying to deliver the message got the message through, and you feel good as just kind of an intermediary that you were able to play a small part in being able to get that spiritual synchronicity between parties, between souls that need to have that information. And I think it's fascinating, and that's why it's so sometimes surprising for me to get that type of information. Let me see how much time I have. Wow, sorry, running into a lot of time issues here. So another sip, and we'll get into another story. Let's see. I've got so many. I'm trying to think which one to go to now. I think one. Trying to see how much I could give of the story. I had one client who, very nice young lady who I'd never met, and she was one of these skeptical souls on this plane that I encounter every now and again, who sometimes maybe don't believe in what I do, or maybe have been to a medium or a psychic that maybe wasn't particularly very good at what they did, or was a charlatan or something. And so I kind of had maybe a negative experience with it and weren't sure about mediums or psychics. So she called me up and asked if I would come see her. So I asked her for an address, and she gave me an address and found out it was a bogus address. And then she only gave me her first name, which is fine. I don't need people's names. I get what I get regardless. But she gave me a first name, which was kind of a nickname. And then she gave me an address that happened to be, turned out to be her cousin's house that she was going to utilize just for the purpose of meeting me. So I wouldn't know where she lived or anything else. So it was from that perspective, an incredibly clean reading. I had no information on her whatsoever before I went. And it was a very good reading with her as well. The energy was fantastic. She had fantastic energy. She was a wonderful individual. But she had, while I was doing the reading, things were coming up that she had had a cousin that died, and the cousin was extremely strong. And so when I started talking, he's like, it was a female cousin and she passed, and here's what's going on with her and what you need to know about her passing and what's going on. And she's concerned about your brother. And so I asked her if she had a brother, and she did. And she said, well, he can be here if you want him to be. I'm like, okay. Um, and so she called her brother and said, meet me here now. Now, without giving too much away, let's just say that the brother had intermittent legal issues, concerns in his past, and was trying to better himself and remove himself from that lifestyle, or things in his life that were causing him to move down that road. So he came to the house about 20 minutes later. He was on the road, and when she called, he made a kind of U-turn and came back and sat down. And I was nervous because I knew about his past, uh, and didn't know what to say because I was a little concerned about how in depth to go with the information I was getting from the other side. And I was told very specifically that one gentleman that got him into a particular lifestyle that was illegal, he was killed in a transaction. And in that process, when he passed, he was maybe 22, 23 years old, and now was with him in spirit. And every time, and I said, look, he's with you all the time. And he's telling me that every time you go to do something bad, you think of him, and he's pops into your head, and he's there, and you think about him every time you go to do something. And he said, that's absolutely true. He goes, I didn't think about that much till now, but every time I've done this, I think about him. I think about him getting me, kind of grooming me in this lifestyle, kind of helping me out, kind of being my mentor. And I'm like, he's there for a reason. He's telling you to get out of this. He made a mistake. He wants you out of this. He's trying to get you and push you into a better life. Your sister's a phenomenal individual. She apparently is trying to get you into school and do other things. And this is what she wants for you. And so does he, from spirit, is trying to get you out of this, because he's saying that if you don't change your lifestyle, you are going to be in prison for a very, very long time. And we went through some personality traits of his that he was saying, because he was being influenced by other people. This wasn't some of this his own decision. There were a lot of influencers around him that were creating a problem. And through this conversation, again, it changed his life. It was a very concerned soul that went out of its way to make sure that he got the message to change his life, to change it for the better, to listen to his sister, to get the message that he was supposed to do to change his life. He apologized for bringing him into this type of life to begin with, but there was still time for him to make a change. And that's, again, I can't make people do anything. All I can do is I'm just a deliverer of messages. But he took these things to heart. And so, again, I haven't seen these people in years now, so I don't know where they are in their journey. But he said at that time, and I knew months later when I had followed up, that he was still on a very positive journey. And hopefully he has stayed that way through this process and been able to ignore some of the people that were trying to influence him in a negative manner. But again, I think the surprising part with this is I went there to do a reading for somebody, and the majority of what was necessary at this reading was for the loved one of someone else. And to get that message across, and to get it through with conviction and with sincerity and with the intent of getting them on a better spiritual path, on a better life path for themselves, so they could have and learn the lessons they're supposed to on this plane without the influence of all of this negativity that was around them at this point in their life. And I find spirit amazing that way. It's uplifting. It's inspiring, and that's why I find what I do incredibly joyous, because you're able to get these messages that do help other people hopefully live a better life. And that should be the intent of everyone that does this type of work. And I think that most light workers, in a sense, are that way, are giving people to try and give the messages that need to be given to the people who need to receive them. Um, so when you go to see a medium or a live medium, or we have a one-on-one or whatever that happens to be, you get the messages that you need. It might not be always what you want, but the intent from spirit is always to, if you're not listening to the messages, if you're not getting the message that you're supposed to be getting from your spirit guides, that's what I'm there to do. In particular, me, that's my particular gift as far as life course is concerned, and one of my strengths. So from spirit as a gift. So uh, don't take offense if you don't hear from somebody that you want to hear from. Take the message that you're given, and hopefully once you get the message that you're given, maybe go back and see that spirit, that medium, again, 4 months, 6 months down the line, and hopefully when your life changes course, or you've listened to the message that were originally given, you may get messages more in line with what you wanted to begin with, because what you needed is now in the past. So I think I'm going to, hopefully I'm going to leave it there for today, I think. And I've got so many more stories to tell in this regard. And if you have any questions, have anything that you want to know about specifically, if you have questions about if you're on the right life course or not, if there's messages that you're supposed to be receiving and you're not, just reach out to me, contact me. You can reach me through my website at spirit-focus.com. You can reach me at Robert Painley at spirit-focus.com, or on Gmail at Robert R.A. Painley, Robert Painley Medium at gmail.com. That's so many, sorry. Or just reach out to me, through my website, through Instagram, or through the Enlightened World Network. And as we run into the holidays, some of you may get very busy. I do want to wish you all a very, very happy holiday season, even with COVID. Count your blessings. If you're still here to talk about it, if you're still here to give your warm wishes to people, embrace the holiday season, give of yourself. Through giving comes the greatest reward. Give your time, give your personality, give your strength, give your goodness, give your light to others during the season. Don't make it all about the gift giving. Take that pressure off of yourself and give of your time, give of yourself. It's a much better gift, and one that will be much more appreciated in the future. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you here next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Have a great night.